now releasing all goblins.
This video is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. with free weekly content and free shipping on orders over $150. You can save 5% site-wide by using the promo code MTGMudsta. And 401 Games, Canada's one-stop shop for trading cards, board games, and hobby supplies. They've got an amazing loyalty program and an easy-to-use and robust buy list. And if you use the promo code MTGMudsta, your first purchase of MTG Sealed and Singles will be 5% off. If you're looking for a direct way to help the channel, please consider joining my Patreon and becoming a member of the generic Goblin Gang. Hey gang, and welcome back. Today the M's join me, with Max, Mika, and Mackenzie returning once more. In today's game, I am playing my Dihada deck, keeping Silent Clearing, Read the Bones, Talisman of Indulgence, Sulphurous Springs, Urza's Ruinous Blast, Fury Storm, and Thematic Compass. Max is playing his Group Hug deck with Kynaios and Tiro, keeping Thespian Stage, Mana Confluence, Grand Colosseum, Wandering Archaic, Dictative Crewfix, Wall of Shards, and Azurta Ancient. Mika is playing King of the Oathbreakers, and he keeps Andril, Flame of the West, Plains, Temple of Silence, Swamp, Selfless Spirit, Sunlit Marsh, and Dispark. And last but not least, Mackenzie is playing Edgin, Larcenous Lutenist, and he's got Thought Vessel, Island, Surge of Brilliance, Academy Ruins, March of Swirling Mists, Preordain, and Winded Words. I win the die roll and start us off. I draw and play Sulphurous Springs. Max just plays a tapped Grand Colosseum. Mika draws and plays a tapped Temple of Silence, scrying 1 and bottoming it. Mackenzie's turn has him playing an island and casting Preordain, scrying 2 and then drawing a card. I play a Swamp and then pay 2 for Talisman of Indulgence. Max plays a Mana Confluence and then takes a damage as he uses it to help cast Wall of Shards. Mika draws and plays a Sunlit Marsh. Mackenzie has an Academy Ruins and pays 2 for a Thought Vessel. I draw and play a Plains. I play a Thematic Compass and pass after that. Max gives Mika a life with the Wall of Shards as a cumulative upkeep, and then draws. He plays a Thespian Stage, and then casts Glade Muse, losing 1 from the Mana Confluence. Mika draws and plays a Plains. He casts Emissary of Hope, and passes. Mackenzie draws for his turn, and plays a Mountain. He then casts his commander, Edgin, and passes. I draw and play a Silent Clearing. I then lose 3 for tapping my lands and artifacts for colored mana to help cast Rain and Riches, and I make 2 treasures and pass. Max gives Mackenzie the 2 life from the wall and draws. Without a land or something to play, he just passes to Mika. In Mika's upkeep, Max flashes in Dictative Crewfix, drawing a card off the Glade Muse. Mika then draws 2 for turn and plays a Plains. Going to combat, Mika swings the Emissary at me and deals 2, and then gains 4 life as I have so many artifacts. He then plays a Selfless Spirit and passes. Mackenzie draws 2 and plays an island. He then foretells a card and casts Izzet Signet. He then foretells another card. After that, he passes, and during his end step, Mika casts Despark on my Rain of Riches, drawing off the Glade Muse. I draw 2 and play Burgi, taking 1 from the mana source. I then play Dihada, taking another 2, and then downtick my Planeswalker, milling 4 and making 4 treasures. With the floating red from Burgi, I then use it to help cast Read the Bones, scrying 2, bottoming 2, drawing 2, and losing 2. Max gives Mackenzie 3 life from the wall trigger and then draws his 2. He then plays an Amulet of Vigor, and then casts Quain and passes to Mika. Mika draws his 2 and plays a Swamp. He then casts Anduril and equips it to the Emissary and goes to combat. He swings a Selfless Spirit at Dihada and the Emissary at me. Dihada gets taken out and I take 5, and Mika then gets to make 2 Spirit tokens as well as gain 4 life. After that, he passes. Mackenzie draws 2 and then plays a Fiery Islet. He then foretells another card and then casts Lightning Greaves and equips it onto his commander. He then puts another card into exile thanks to Foretell and passes after that. I draw my 2 and play a Blood Crypt untapped, taking 2. I then recast Dihada and downtick her again, milling 4. I pass after that. Max gives me 4 life from the wall this time around and draws his 2. He plays an island and then casts Girapur Orrery, and then plays a Plains as his second land for turn. He follows up by activating Quain, making us all draw a card and gain 1, and then passes turn. Mika draws 2 and plays a Bojuka Bog, exiling my graveyard. He then plays an Exotic Orchard. He casts a Coat of Arms and goes to combat. He swings everything at Mackenzie, which is a total of 27 damage, and Mackenzie takes it all, and Mika then passes. Mackenzie draws 2 and then plays a Dragonlord Servant. He then plays Renari from one of his Foretell cards, and then casts an Expressive Iteration. He puts a card to hand, exiles Sulphur Falls, and puts a card on the bottom, and then plays the Sulphur Falls from exile. I draw 2 and play Hall of Heliod's Generosity. I then cast Urabrask, and then play Urza's Ruinous Blast. Mackenzie responds by saving his Dragonlord Servant by using Slip Out the Back on it, and the board gets mostly wiped. I then cast a Chromatic Lantern, and uptick Dihada on Birgi. And going to combat, I swing Birgi at Mika for 3. He takes it, and I gain 3, and I pass after that. Max draws for turn, and then plays Kynaios and Tiro. He then passes, and we all choose to draw a card from the Kynaios and Tiro trigger, while Max gets to do both. Mika draws and plays King of the Oathbreakers. He then equips it with Anduril, which is some kind of flavor win or non-bow, or I'm not entirely sure right now, and he passes after that. Mackenzie draws, and Max activates Quain so we all draw 1 and gain 1. Mackenzie then plays a mountain and foretells a card, and then plays There and Back again. He makes Urabrask unblockable and makes his Dragonlord Servant the Ringbearer. Going to combat, he swings a Servant at Dihada and passes after that. I draw and play Cut on Renari, dealing 1 to Mika with the Urabrask trigger. I then uptick Dihada on Urabrask and swing it at Mackenzie. He takes the hit, and I pass after that. Max draws and plays a mountain. He plays Horn of Plenty and then activates Quain. We all draw a card and gain a life, and Max then moves to his end step. This has Max drawing and playing an island from the trigger, while Mika and Mackenzie just draw a card, and I put to field the Cabal Coffers. Mika draws and plays a Plains. He plays an Invasion of Tolvada on me, and then goes to combat. I cast Rakdos Charm before he swings, destroying Anduril, and Mika then swings the King at the Invasion. It drops down to 2, and Mika then passes turn. Mackenzie draws and searches for a mountain off his saga, and then puts it into play. He then plays a Cascading Cataracts, and casts Soul Ring, paying 1 into the horn. He then foretells a card. He then follows up with Seize the Spotlight, and we each give him a treasure. Mackenzie then plays a Mirage Mirror, and pays the 1, and then goes to his end step. He then draws 3 off the horn, and goes to discard, passing. I draw and play a tapped Temple of Silence. I then cast Faithless Looting, getting 2 red, and dealing 1 to Mika. And then downtick Dihada for more treasures. I then cast a Dark Petition with Spell Mastery, but don't cast anything else after that, and just pass. Max draws and plays Zerta Ancient, and then plays a Howling Mind, and then a Fairy Mastermind. As we move to Max's end step, Mika casts Swords to Plowshares and exiles Urabrask, gaining me some life. We then resolve the Kynaios and Tiro trigger, with all of Max's opponents drawing a card. And once that's done, Max activates Quain to make us all draw another card and gain 1, so he gets 3 Fairy Mastermind triggers. Mika draws 2 and plays a Swamp. He then plays a Cryptghast and then a Pontiff of Blight. He then follows up with Lingering Souls, and pays for 5 of the Extorts, draining us all for 5 and gaining 15. Going to combat, Mika then swings the Selfless Spirit at the battle, which takes it out and transforms it. and during his end step, he gets to make a spirit token and passes. Mackenzie draws 2 and makes a Smaug token as he finishes his saga. He then plays a mountain, and then makes the Mirage Mirror a copy of the Zerta Ancient. And he then plays Terror of the Peaks, and vows to do the rest of the Terror of the Peaks damage to me for this turn. He follows that up with Terror of Mount Velis, and deals 5 to me. Mackenzie's team then gains double strike as the Terror comes in, and he then plays Elena. He then plays his Hellkite Tyrant, and casts Winged Words to draw 2, and then follows up with Atsushi. Mackenzie wraps things up by casting Surge of Brilliance, and then a Leyline Tyrant, and deals the Terror of the Peaks damage to Bergie this time around. Going to combat, Mackenzie then swings all out at me, taking me out, and passing to Max. Max draws 2 and plays a Reflecting Pool. He plays a Lithoform Engine, and then casts a Wandering Archaic. Max then follows up with Font of Mythos, and then moves to his end step. During his end step, Mika then casts an Eerie Interlude and targets his spirits, who phase out before the spell resolves, and he makes 4 spirit tokens, and we then move to Max's end step, and everyone draws off Kynaios and Tiro. Mika's board phases back in, Mika then plays a Plains and casts an Intangible Virtue, and pays the white or black mana for 10 extorts. Mackenzie responds with Reality Shift, exiling the Pontiff of Blight, but realizes he's too late, and will still die either way. Max also responds, using Teferi's Protection to phase out, and with Mackenzie dying to the extorts, and nothing else to do, Mika then just passes turn. Max draws 4, and casts a Spark Double as a copy of the Zerta Ancient, and then plays a Glasspool Mimic to copy the Spark Double copy that is Zerta Ancient. He then plays a Tidal Barracuda, and casts a Coveted Jewel, drawing 3 as it enters. He then casts a Replication Technique and demonstrates it. And before letting that resolve, Max copies the spell with Lithoform Engine and makes 3 copies of Coveted Jewel, while Mika makes a copy of the Cryptcast, but it phases out instead. Max then draws 9, and he then taps enough to cast Nexus of Fate, gaining himself an extra turn and shuffling it in. He then plays Folio of Fancies. He follows up with Valakut Awakening to ditch his hand and draw a new one, +1, and then plays Jace Beleren. He then upticks the Walker, and everyone gets to draw a card. He then activates the Folio of Fancies, so each player will draw 3, and he gets another Fairy Mastermind trigger, and then moves to his end step. This gets him his Kynaios and Tiro trigger, and Max draws a card and plays a Forest, while Mika just draws a card. Max then moves to his extra turn. On his next extra turn, Max draws 4 and plays Horn of Greed. He then plays a Forest and draws again, and then recasts the Nexus of Fate and copies it with Lithoform Engine. He follows up by activating Folio of Fancies, so each player will draw 28 cards, and Max then moves to his end step. Once more, he gets a Kynaios and Tiro trigger, and we then move to his next turn. Max draws 4, and activates the Folio to mill Mika equal to the cards in his hand. He then activates the Fairy Mastermind to force him to draw, and since he can't, Mika loses the game. Game review time. This video was 1 hour, 12 minutes, and 36 seconds, and when Max brought out his group hug deck, I was not expecting him to win. I thought it was going to amplify the game and speed everything up, and it did, but it also allowed Max to assemble about 5 or 6 cards that actually allowed him to win, and it was a lot of fun to see all the gears moving. I love the fact that he copied Coveted Jewel so many times. I thought that was particularly cool, and that Folio seems very, very interesting. I'm a really big fan of Mika's King of the Oathbreakers deck. I think he's done a great job of balancing typal cards and fun support cards. That coat of arms was terrifying, and I was lucky to have the Urza's Ruinous Blast in hand to deal with it. I really hope Mackenzie doesn't take apart his Edgin deck. He has a habit of building new ones just for the channel and then taking them apart, because this felt like it had a lot of potential, we just didn't see it. I think the card is very strong with the Foretell ability, and I'm hoping based on what we saw, this is a Dragonstorm based deck, because I love that idea. As for Dihada, I'm sure people were wondering why Mackenzie focused so much of the Terror of the Peaks on me, but he was rightly to do so. I was about to have double mana, I just tutored for a card, I had a tutor in my graveyard, things were going to get messy for my opponents. My deck can go off with very little support, so having all that, plus the chance to draw 3 cards on my next turn, seemed like it was a very dangerous position for the rest of the table to be in. This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, Cool Stuff Inc., Multizone, Original Magic Art, and Alter Sleeves. But it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.